What's good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your favorite gentleman, Jay Rashad. I got a treat for y'all today. I got a good friend and mentor with me sitting down, Mr. Andrew Whitson. You can wave to them or talk or whatever.
Well,
That's going to be your camera right there.
hey,
So if you want to talk directly.
how's everybody doing out there? How y'all doing?
So today is going to be a little bit of a touchy topic. I'll start off by just asking you the question directly. How important do you feel are safe spaces for men?
Literally one of the most important things that you can invest your time into. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, I would say it's a 12.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't think us as men have a lot of open outlets to talk to about a lot of our feelings, emotions, the things we go through, or even like people a lot of the time. We might have maybe one or two, but we don't have a lot of opportunity, I should say, to talk about how we really feel and our emotions.
I would agree with that. Being a black male who has grew up in the Midwest for many years of my life, I just feel like, like you said, we don't have many opportunities or even given the right encouragement, if you will, to be able to speak on how we feel emotionally, speak on what we're going through internally, things that we go through as far as situations. A lot of times we are not encouraged to just be able to speak on them or be able to ask for help when needed. A lot of times it's just a matter of kind of just being told to man up or to suffer in silence, if you will. And I don't agree with that at all. I feel like that does more damage than it ever does help for an individual,
Hands
especially
down.
black men. Yeah.
I agree with that. And then being a mentor, of course, and a certified life coach, do you see a lot of people that on the flip side do you see a lot of people, especially men especially, and even more specific, black men, that have had a safe space to go to or to, outlet to talk to people, and then comparatively meet somebody on the opposite end of the spectrum? Like, what are some of the differences that you notice between the two?
Actually, very big differences. So to kind of answer the first part of your question, being someone who has worked with several individuals over the years as a mentor and a life coach, wanting to give individuals, especially men, a safe space to be able to come to and talk about things that they're going through, good, bad, and indifferent. I feel like it's a great purpose in expressing all of it. But more specifically for those things that people are going through internally that they can deem as bad in their life or something that's not really helping them to prosper or level up, is things that need to be expressed more than anything. And throughout the years of me talking to black men of color, because I've dealt with several type of men on different spectrums, and a lot of them have shared with me that they have not felt comfortable or encouraged or have had an outlet to be able to speak to someone, especially another male of color, to be able to help guide them through certain areas of their life that they were struggling with. And that was always something that I encouraged them to be able to speak on, just to be able to express themselves, to get it out, whether it was in a form of, just therapy, or if it was just, wanting to express because they felt like, oh, well, I don't want to get laughed at, or I don't want to be talked about, or I don't want to come off as weak, so I never knew who I could, talk about certain situations with, whether it comes to, them dealing with things in their home, whether it came to them dealing with things in school, or, at the workplace, whether it was in relationships, or some of the young gentlemen that I've mentored over the years have, prospered into becoming young fathers, but they also had questions about that. They didn't know, or just feeling like if they were doing the right things, by becoming dads themselves and wanting to be in their kids' lives, or how to, how to handle certain things, because some of them actually didn't have older male role models, including their own fathers, in their lives to be able to help guide them along the way in the first place. And so that's something that really kind of hit home to me, and I think is very important for any males, especially men of color, who, as you know, in our society, being black males, unfortunately, the statistics shows that a lot of us don't have older male role models or father figures that are in the home. So I feel like that's where we may lack more than some of our counterparts, on the other end of the spectrum. They may have two-parent households, or even, just an older generation, like, maybe having even, uncles or older brothers that looked out for them. And a lot of times I notice with men of color and black men, that's a lot of times not the case with us. We have more of our older figures in our life that if they are there, a lot of times they were not there in a positive way.
Yeah.
And this is what I have been told from young gentlemen that I have mentored. They have literally told me I do have older brothers or older cousins, but they are not the best role models and influencers for me, and I need to find a different role model or someone else that I can be able to entrust into, so that I don't fall down the same path they're trying to guide me down. I've literally been told that more than one time. So
Yeah.
I would agree, safe spaces and being able to help the new generation or anyone period who feels like they may have been lacking in some area or not getting the right guidance that they need is also important. Just literally from here going forward.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Being a single father on my own who didn't have that guidance, that role model, that example of what a father should be, it's challenging because when you don't see how something works, especially the way that my mind works, I'm mechanically minded. So I need to see how things work so I can either fix or emulate. I can't correct what I don't know is a problem. And so for me, and especially I'm raising a little girl by myself, it is tough. It is tough sometimes. But I do notice the difference in the men that did, or, men that grew up with a father in the home. I do notice myself a lot of the times I want to say they're more aware, more sensitive to like children's needs and wife's needs, stuff like that. Especially, father of men who grow up and they watch their parents married and stay together. Like I do notice a significant difference in that versus people who haven't. Now, do you think there's like, because I know they don't have a lot of these anymore. Like when we were younger, we had like youth centers and stuff like that we could go to, and there's probably some type of positive male role model, be it a coach or something like that at those centers. But do you know any places like that anymore, or like a lot of them shut down, haven't they?
A lot of them have shut down from what I have been noticing. It seems like, the ones that are like either nonprofit tiered, or just the ones that are to be able to get funding, through like after school programs or things like that, are being, downsized, unfortunately. And if there's no one to be able to, pay for those programs, then they go away. And it's sad because you got some of those kids who really need those programs, and other adults who are looking to be able to help, and want to be a part of these programs. But if there's no foundation for them to be able to plug into, then where do they go, kind of thing. And so, unfortunately, that's what I've been noticing, that some of these programs have been downsizing. Like you said, back when we were younger, there was programs, and the Boys and Girls Club, which was really thriving back then, and you have the Big Brothers Big Sisters programs like that, and I believe those are still around. However, to be able to get kids to be able to get involved in them, I feel like the push isn't as hard as what it used to be either.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many other avenues, or in some ways distractions, if you would, for these kids to get caught up in. And then you got the parents who are working 2 and 3 jobs sometimes, who don't even know what I mean, like what's going on with their kids, and they're not really there. And it's not really due to a fault of theirs. They're just trying to keep a roof over their head, and of course food on the table, because with the cost of everything going up, it's like parents like, I have to work a job, but then you got the younger generation and the adolescents that are now suffering because they don't have have, their parents in the home as much to be able to help guide them. And so at that point, what do you do before it's too late?
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, I wish a lot of those programs were still. I wish a lot of those were still out, or if they are still there, I wish they would push a lot harder, because I think a lot of us survived off of those programs, especially during the summertime when
Agreed.
kids can go have somewhere that they can play, be themselves. They probably had a mentor or coach somewhere that they can talk to on a regular basis. They can at least go get a snack, something like that. And so without that, I mean, teenagers and youth just kind of running around
Falling by the wayside.
trying to find something to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're talking about them in their adolescent years, which are very formative to who they become as an adult, and you don't have anyone helping to shape that for them and, show them direction, show them what options they may have in life, opportunities, kind of help them to figure out what their passions are, and things like that, then a lot of their skill level and talent will maybe not even go discover maybe until later in life, if at all, if they're just not, involved in anything that will help pursue them in that direction.
Yeah. I hate that though.
Agreed.
What do you think? What do you think of some ideas that we can do as millennials, I should say, us who kind of saw the change over time? What are some things you think, or some suggestions? They may not be, possibly out there at the moment, but what are some things that you think we can do to kind of get those opportunities and those things back into alignment, so kids can have somewhere to go, so they're not just running wild?
Honestly, when they say it takes a village, I feel like it is so true in so many different ways, to have people start coming back together as a village, and whatever resources are available now within local communities, like different PTAs and after school programs that are still available. And for those, if, parents as well as, the teenagers who are willing and wanting to plug into those things, absolutely by all means do so. But also, just even outside of a formative program, just for those who have, a small group of adults who are close with each other, and they feed off each other when it comes to their own children. Maybe there is some adults that are close with other adults, and depending on, kind of what their strengths are amongst themselves, they start formulating a group where they can work within the children and, help. I'm saying you help mine, I help yours, kind of thing. And then from there, can teach the kids, let's do this. Let me show you kind of what it is that I do as far as career. Let me just try to find out what it is that the kids like to do. What are their interest levels? What are their, what it is that they're struggling in, just kind of just talk to them and, formulate different parent groups amongst themselves in their own smaller communities and meet, to be able to kind of help kids guide along the way. Because you got some adults that work different schedules, but it maybe it to kind of help each other, during the time where you may be free and other parent isn't, and vice versa, and maybe kind of formulating smaller groups like that amongst each other can help. And then also, as you guys start to figure out what other programs may be available in the local community, kind of branch out from there, so that way the kids will have multiple resources to be able to use to help, just kind of help guide them. Because what I've learned over the years is just working with, other individuals who have kids, and just mentoring some of the young adults, because I normally kind of like have mentored and coached young adults between the ages of about 18 and 25 now. Excuse me. And those are the a lot of them are starting to become new parents themselves. And so, but they like to come and they like to talk to me, just about what their struggles and what they're doing, what they're going through, and just embarking on what it was like to be a teenager and adolescence, and now I'm going into adulthood. I'm starting to do my career. What path do I want to take? Where am I going? And so a lot of them, they like to talk about it, and they, but they're so lost, but they still have a lot of energy. They still have a lot of thirst for life. But they just kind of are just, they just looking for some guidance. And so you'll be surprised how many, of the young adults and adolescent teenagers are wanting guidance. Some of them may not know how to ask for it, but a lot of them are wanting it. And that's, right. And that was one thing that surprised me. me because it's like sometimes you turn on the news and you see, so many, of these young kids or teenagers out here doing wrong things, and you kind of think that that's what all of them are about because that's all we see on the news and social media. But there are so many of the young adults and teenagers that I've talked to who are not bad, and they're looking for guidance. They come and they say, you know what I mean? Can you work with me? Can you talk to me? Can you explain and how to sound? And I look and I'm just like, wow, these kids, they're really wanting to make something themselves. They're not trying to go down a bad path. They just don't have, someone to help guide them. They like, some of them are literally just asking, please,
Yeah.
and like I said, some people don't know, or some of them don't know who to go to or who to turn to. So for an older adult to be able to take the initiative and say, hey, I'm here for you, that may open the door just for them to say, yeah, I've been wanting to talk, but I didn't know how to ask.
Ooh.
You know.
Ooh, you hitting home right now. Ooh, you hitting home right now. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I was one of those kids as a teenager, and not only would I say I had that I didn't have the guidance, but I also would say I was misguided. And there's a big difference between the two. A lot of people don't recognize, but like I had older cousins and people that I was around that were giving me the wrong guidance. And so growing up, you know, you see something all the time and you figure that's normal
That's what it is.
until you see something different and people look at you like, no, that's not normal. So then you have to learn how to readjust and rethink at the same time while trying to seek that proper guidance so that you can get to where you want to get to. Because you don't, like I said, most people don't want to be bad people. They either just don't have the guidance or they're misguided. And I was one of those misguided people until I found somebody who was able to turn that around for me. The beauty of it with me is that it was inadvertently for him. He was just trying to be somebody who was trying to be there. It wasn't like he was trying to change anything or he was trying to mold my mind or anything. He was just there. But he was an example for me. And so him just being that example was enough for me to rethink and reshape my mind and say, maybe I'm going about all of this all wrong. Maybe I don't have the right skills. Maybe I did learn the wrong ways. But now, how can I flip that? How can I start looking for the right things? How can I start to become the right person so then I can later on in life become that person that someone seeks when they need guidance? 'Cause that's a big thing. If anybody, do you have a person that you feel is a safe space? And a two-part question. Do you have somebody that you feel is a safe space? And how did they get there?
It's interesting you should ask that. I guess because your podcast viewers don't know, you and I have actually gone way back. We've known each other for a couple of decades now. And believe it or not, podcast family, this gentleman actually has become like a mentor to me as well. And in a lot of ways has become a safe space for me, just like a brother would be. And so we've been able to talk about some of the toughest times that I've had in my life, but we've also been able to celebrate a lot of the good times and the accomplishments that I've had along the way as well. And we've been able to do that for each other. And I feel like that is very important to be able to have someone or multiple someones in your life like that. And so I'm proud to say, and I'm even glad that he has set up this platform for other people to be able to come express themselves now, which is another reason why I give him so much credit and why I like the fact that he is a person I can say is a safe space for me. And one area that I would definitely say makes a person be a safe space is the amount of trust that you can put inside of a person. You can't have a safe space if you can't trust someone with who it is that you are, because you're literally opening up and being vulnerable to that person and just letting them know, this is who I am. This is everything, So I've been able to come and share a lot of different things over the years that he's been able to help me through, and I feel, vice versa. And just being able, like I said, one, having that level of trust, but also having someone that you feel that you respect, and someone that you feel that has a great level of knowledge, as well as empathy for who you are, what you're going through. Because if they don't have those things, in my opinion, if they don't have those things that strongly relate to who you are, and you guys being on, a very similar level in reference to that, then it's going to be very hard for you to kind of instill that kind of trust and that value into that person if you don't feel like they can relate with where you're coming from. And so I feel like that's been the case with us for, many years. And even though we have lived in very close quarters together, as well as we have lived completely across the country from each other, literally. I feel like our bond has never wavered in all that entire time. Don't get me wrong, audience. I'm not saying that we have not had our ups and downs, like excuse me, like any brotherhood hasn't. But if anything, that still has a testimony to us being able to be here to this day within itself.
I appreciate that. Cheers.
For that. Yeah.
Whew. You said a lot. But that's all good.
I meant a lot.
That's that's good. That's good. All good content. So, if you don't mind, let me get a little personal with you.
I mind. No.
So, let me ask this, and if anything is too uncomfortable, let me know. Strike it from the record, whatever.
I'll speak on it.
But it's mainly a question, and it can be across the board, anything. What would you say was one of the most difficult things that you had to accept about yourself?
That is an interesting question. There's a few different things that maybe over the years I felt like I've had to grow with and develop. One in particular that comes to mind is the fact of how I have identified myself when it comes to, of asexual nature and preference, to be a person that had to come to terms with, internally come to terms with being attracted to both genders was something that I had to, was uncomfortable for me to come to terms with at one point. But over the years was able to process that. It was something I held inside for a long time. Of obviously it was okay with the opposite gender, but being attracted to the same gender was one thing that was always something that kind of made me be standoffish. So to be able to openly now be able to speak on that was a work in progress for a long time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can definitely say so. Was there anybody that you had that you could talk to in the beginning about this, or was there a form of therapy that you had, or a therapist that you talked to about any of this, so you can kind of voice your needs or express yourself?
No, not an actual form of therapy in the traditional sense, if you would. I have had several mentors over the course of my adult life, though, and so I would attribute a lot to them being able to help guide me in different ways, from everything from a spiritual aspect to a business aspect, as well as a personal and emotional aspect, which I, am absolutely grateful for, which is why I'm such an advocate on others being able to find someone in their life that they can be able to reach out and express those things with too, on multiple levels. But in reference to the identity of, one's sexual identity in the beginning, for a long time, no, I didn't have anyone that I actually felt comfortable with to speak on that about, all the way through my adolescent years up into my young adulthood, which made things very, very hard, trying to hold a lot in. And even though I was, the older I got, it's never that I really felt unsure about who I was internally for me, what it was, who it was that I liked, who I was attracted to, things like that. Inside in my own mind, I knew, what I was attracted to, what I liked, and who I was willing to, look at it in that kind of way. However, when it came to wanting to be able to express that to someone else or having a safe space with someone else, to be able to confide in, I did not have that for a long time. I was literally of adult age by the time I had ever even expressed it to anyone out loud. Like I was over the age of 18.
So how I'm gonna say, because I mean it's kind of a cliche question, but it's like, how difficult is that to go through, and then what advice would you give to somebody who you feel may be going through that same thing?
Well, it was very difficult in my overall realm of things. And I'll give you a little background about myself. I am the youngest of four children. Grew up with two of my siblings in the household with me, and two-parent household, mother and father. And I have a sister and brother that I grew up in the household with as well. And so if you guys caught that dynamic, male, female, I literally grew up in such a very heterosexual household. It was crazy, And so day in and day out, I felt like the odd person out. But the weird thing was nobody knew it but me. Nobody knew that I felt that way. Like I was kind of like always a little off, or just uncomfortable even being, because everybody was a certain way. Everybody was, everybody liked it. Just who they liked. My brother had girlfriends, my sister had boyfriends, and it was just like, they were doing their thing, and I was just like, well, they're not like me, but I couldn't tell them that, because especially because I was the youngest of the family. So, I was the baby, and it was like, I didn't want, so I already felt like I was kind of, living in the shadows, or, I just had to do what everybody else said because I was the youngest, so for me to be able to speak up for myself was already kind of hard in that sense, because I was the youngest. I had to do what everybody else said. I had to follow everybody else's rules. I was the baby, so it was very hard to even find my voice, at a young age. So I just kept a lot and held a lot in, and had to deal with a lot, on my own, that I never really got a chance to express. And it was hard. It was hard in the beginning. It was very hard. So with any advice that I would give, I would love to give some advice to, anyone who was struggling with that kind of, mindset at this point, in their lives, especially being younger. But one piece of advice that I would give to some of the older individuals, maybe some individuals who actually have kids who, they suspect may be kind of going through some identity, excuse me, some identity challenges themselves, is to try to help give them a safe space. Try to speak to them. And it's not saying that you have to confront them about it. It's not saying that you have to go there and just put it all on the table, because it may be something that they're not ready to speak on, or it may not be something that they're even ready, that they know, kind of about themselves. But to kind of be there for them more, and kind of let them know, take them, kind of take them in closer, pay a little bit more attention to them, let them know that you're there for them, so that they feel comfort. Because I'm gonna tell you, there were some things that, with my parents being old school, that they did or they said, when I was around, when I was a young, child, or, a young teenager, that they said, and they weren't even speaking to me. They were just, talking to one another, or, on the phone, or, with their own siblings, my aunts and uncles, and they would say things that I knew, kind of, meant that that things were not, what I thought they were, or that, it was going to be a little harder to talk to them about my own situation based off of how I saw them handle other situations.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me, go back into my shell even more so. And so that's why I say, when it comes to dealing with your own children, speak to them, let them know that you're there, kind of talk to them openly, make them feel comfortable about, just life itself. And so that way, when they do come to terms with things, if at all, or if they ever want to come to you and talk to you about, that situation or anything different that they might feel just as uncomfortable with them, they know that, because you have made it so comfortable for them in other ways, and let them know that, you're their parent. Yeah, you want them to respect you. Yeah, you want them to follow your rules, but also you're still someone that's human, someone that they can talk to, someone that they can relate with, and they also understand that you have feelings, you're emotional, you have been young at one point, and you realize that everything isn't so black and white in this world. And so when they start to see you as a person like that, and they like, oh, they may get it, they may feel a little bit more comfortable opening up to you.
That's definitely good advice. Yeah, navigating that, especially in today's day and age, it's I hate to say it, but suicide rates are at an alarming high because people aren't feeling accepted. People don't feel like they have a safe space to go to within friends, classmates, parents, counsel, whoever. People just they're taking it upon themselves to do the wrong thing because they're just mentally overwhelmed. And I mean, of course, I don't like that for anybody.
Absolutely. And one thing that we do have to realize is that I feel like everyone does not process everything in the same way. As a matter of fact, pretty much no one does. And so what we might think is a, easy situation for us to handle or deal with, the next person may, it can literally be the straw that breaks the camel's back, because they are literally just so, what I'm saying, they're either overwhelmed with so much other stuff they have in their life, or they just may not be as developed as a person as you are. Even despite they may be the same age or older than you, they just may not have been through enough personal development in a spiritual, emotional, mental, and roundabout way to be able to help them to be able to say, I'm strong enough to handle this situation. So they may look at somebody else going through the same thing, and they like, oh, why is it so easy for them? Why does it seem like, they can just kind of get through this without with a breeze, and well, they've worked on themselves. You never know what they went through in the rest of their life to be able to make them strong enough to uphold that. But conversely, we also have to realize when we see someone breaking down from a situation where we're like, why are you taking that so hard? Why are you dealing with it? Why is it so much pressure on you? It's like, well, you don't know what that person's capacity is. So I say, have empathy for them. You know what I mean? Have a little emotion for them, and say, you know what, I'm going to check on this person and say, they're not me. They may not be strong enough to handle, this scenario. And if anything, instead of brushing them off or saying, walk it off or get over it, or, just, you should just be stronger, this isn't that bad, say, what is it? What can I do to help you? This situation doesn't seem, as hard for me. So maybe I can help teach you some of the tools that I have had, or that have helped me to be able to overcome a scenario like this. And so I feel like if we as a human race would, help pass that along to individuals more so when we see someone down and out, versus just saying, oh, well, that shouldn't be that hard for them, they should be able to just get over it, but they're not you. They don't have, they may not be equipped or developed enough to be able to get over it as fast. And so that's where, us as human beings need to step in and help each other out. And, they could be stronger in another area that you may need them in one day, and so that's just what, in my opinion, what makes us good as a human race to be able to help the world go around, is by helping to lean on me when, in your moment of weakness, if it's something that's my strength, and then vice versa, when I come to a moment of weakness or something that I may not be as strong in, that you may be stronger in, then you in turn can be able to help me through that time where I needed it. And then, overall, as we help each other develop and grow, and we get older, we will become stronger people all together, and then we can pour back into the next generation as needed.
I like that. That's good stuff. So, being where we are right now, and just give me your honest opinion on this. Do you think that things between people not having safe spaces, do you think things are going to get worse or better in the next 5-10 years?
Honestly, unfortunately, I would say they're going to get worse. Just taking a look at the way that equation is even set up. it's set up for disaster. You are constantly adding more into the equation of what it is that people are either the standards they're trying to live up to, the requirements that are being put out there from different people, from their workplaces to their home life to just all the different opportunities that are out there that may not be so good for people, but people it looks like it's gold and glamour, so it glitters, and so everybody wants to be a part of it. So the more things people keep putting on their plate is also, I feel like, contributing to the detriment of their health, their mental health. Therefore, and without them having safe spaces or different outlets on how to be able to deal with it or be able to prioritize what they should be having in their lives versus what they shouldn't, and then you're just filling it with more and more and more, and a lot of it may be, when you look back on it, maybe kind of like trash related, and you keep putting it into a person's vessel, and all of a sudden it's just gonna be, it's gonna be too much, and that's when you get people that end up having breakdowns and they don't really understand, where it all went wrong, But that's just what it is. It's just so much coming at them, and they're not knowing how to process it, how to deal with it, or even what should be in their life versus what shouldn't be, and then it's just becoming too much for people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say to that, we got to do something different. That's fine. Don't worry about that. We got to do something different. So what can we do? What can we start to set in place for people to be more comfortable and be more open and willing to have those safe spaces?
Well, you mentioned one thing before in reference to therapy, and I feel like that has become something that has been brought to the spotlight more these days, which I am so in agreement with. I think that is good. A lot of people are speaking about their own mental health. You got even some people who are like, in the celebrity spotlight who are speaking about mental health and what they're going through and the fact that they are choosing to go through therapy. And I do favor the fact that we have had some people of color who are even stepping up and saying, yeah, this is hard for me. I know there's a gentleman, some of you may know him as the musician Common. He has a book that's out right now, and I was currently reading it, and he speaks about his mental health inside of the book as well.
Yes.
And that is going to therapy, and how it has helped him so much to speak about his life, and where, even though, a lot of us see him for who he is today and how he's, done well for himself, but not really realizing what it took for him to get there, and so to read through the book that, he's speaking about, and the fact that he talks about, from when he was younger and a lot of the trials and tribulations and some of the things that were, kind of done to him that he had to overcome, and it took for him to be able to go through therapy to start to unpack some of that stuff. And once he started to unpack it, it helped him to be able to begin his healing process. And so he was saying how he started to heal from the inside, and work his way out, to his outer body, as far as, physically getting in shape and things like that and eating right, but also getting his mental state and his emotional state better was where a lot of it started for him. And I respect him so much for, being able to speak on that. And like I said, being able to write a book and put it out there to the point where it's letting other people know that it's okay. It's okay that, you don't always have to live the life that you've lived. Who you are or who you were does not necessarily define who you are. Right. So what you've been in your past does not automatically dictate how your future is going to go. And so just because you have been through things, or even you've made some bad decisions that have landed you in places that you would rather not, that doesn't mean that you can't make a decision from today and say, I'm going to still better myself. I'm going to choose to be able to find different outlets to be able to plug into, to be able to better myself, whether it's doing things on your own, or reaching out for some help like therapy or a life coach to be able to help guide you on a path to be able to create better goals for yourself for the future.
Okay. Good. No, I like that. Yeah, I got to read that book. That book is it's in my list right now. I mean, I have it over there, but I just haven't got to that book yet to read it. But from what I'm told, it's definitely a good read, and it's gonna be probably gonna move it up next on my list because I currently just started therapy again myself for the third time. Yeah, I personally think that with it's kind of difficult to say, so it's taking me a little bit to get it out, but with therapy, if you can find the right therapist that you feel like is that safe space, then it can do a world of wonders. It's definitely, I got to get my words together.
Take your time.
It's like church.
Okay.
Definitely good to have a good therapist, not just any therapist. You got to make sure you got chemistry with your therapist, because if you don't, then that safe space will never get there, and you'll just be talking and saying a bunch of words, but it's not reaching anybody, and they can't give you any good feedback.
I would agree.
So that's one thing I just wanted to put out there. Before we go ahead and wrap this up, any thoughts you want to give, any advice you want to give, anything that you want to say, or anything you want to ask me?
In reference to giving advice to anyone that's listening, um, take your personal development just as serious as you would anything in your life. And that was one thing that my mentors had taught me a long time ago. Me personally, I haven't actually went through what you would consider, formal therapy. But over the years, I've had a lot of people that I have been able to speak to now, and including some mentors of mine who, like I said, have helped me to grow and develop and shape into, a very good man who, as I began to start my own mentoring and coaching, a lot of people have thanked me for, who it is that I am. And I think a lot of that to the mentors that I've had, to be able to help shape me and work through, because without them and without being able to become this person, then I wouldn't be anyone for anyone else to be able to look up to in that sense. And so, that's also why I would say, for people to be able to take their own development seriously, because for one, that's to me, that's how you're going to be able to really be able to experience life for what it's worth for you, to be able to be 100%, unapologetically yourself is going to be able to have you live this life, and be 100% involved in what life has to offer for you. But if you do not work on yourself, then how can you ever enjoy what life is? How can you ever really understand and really fully intake everything in life if you're not willing to be able to become that person for yourself? If you're not willing to be able to be worked on yourself 100%, how can you receive life at 100%, if that makes sense? So continue to constantly work on yourself, and take it very, very seriously. Reach out to people who you trust to be able to help you in your development process, whether it is someone who is going to help you in a therapeutic way, someone who's going to be able to help you from a mentoring and a coaching standpoint, to be able to help you identify areas of weakness and areas of strength that you want to be able to work on to be able to help you become a well-rounded person. And just in general, just to be able to, to be able to help the next person. I'm a firm advocate on that, just to be able to want to reach out, and it's like to be able to help someone else. I feel like these days so many people are so tied into kind of what they're doing, and what can they have, what can they accomplish, or wanting each person to kind of look at me for what it is that I have. But it's like, what are you doing to be able to help the next person? Because my mentors also taught me, the more people you help, the more your blessings will come. And so, yeah, it's a great feeling when, those around you are also winning, and you all can celebrate together. So, you know, nothing is lost from a candle by lighting another candle. So just encourage and continue to be able to help the next person next to you, because you just never know when it may be your turn. And once everyone gets to a point where they can all celebrate together, that's a very great feeling.
Most definitely. All right. Well, I want to take the time to thank our guest, Mr. Andrew Whitson, certified life coach, for joining us today. Until next time, sit down, have a drink with us, and cheers.